Well, good morning. On behalf of the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership, I want to welcome you all in person and virtually to Howard Park. My name is Aaron Perry. I'm the Executive Director of South Bend Venues, Parks, and Arts, and I'm a committee member of the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership. It's exciting to be here at Howard Park in a space surrounded by places that didn't even exist 5 or 6 years ago when we first started dreaming about regional cities. Is that exciting? Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Now, this is only indicative of dozens of projects, obviously, that happened throughout the region. And Howard Park itself, a lot of people might not realize when we first started thinking about this, I was part of the project team along with Scott Ford and then Chief of Staff, now Mayor James Mueller, who started dreaming about this project. But we didn't think about it just as a park. In fact, when we applied, it was a whole series of investments up and down the riverfront that now include about 80 new rooftops in the village at the Riverwalk, a whole new neighborhood that didn't even exist. And that was in partnership with a totally restored Riverwalk right across the street. A new boathouse investment by the University of Notre Dame that includes public restrooms and soon to be new public boat launch. And then just to the north, a new 6-story mixed use building with high-end condos and a restaurant to open soon. And adjacent to that, the St. Joseph River will create hydroelectric power once again for the first time in decades, thanks to a partnership with the University of Notre Dame. And then on top of that, a fully restored, state-of-the-art Sites Park will be installed with the same finishes and fashions that you see here at Howard Park. Now, those of you that know me well know I could probably give an hour-long PowerPoint on Howard Park, but that's not, Regina, so that's not why we're here, Aaron. But nonetheless, we're really proud of what's happened here, and it's been recognized. And I think we did what we set out to do, not only with Howard Park, but with projects throughout the region that are getting recognized globally. This space in and of itself has been recognized by the Indiana Parks and Recreation Association, the American Institute of Architects, the National Parks and Recreation Association. Most recently, just last week, the International Making Cities Livable Institute recognized Howard Park as one of the top places in the world. Truly, again, but this is only indicative of the, I think, nearly 28 projects that happened in all of our cities and towns, and we should be very proud as we start to talk about today what the next evolution of that might be. We're grateful to be partnering with Community Services for All Deaf. Megan is to my right, providing American Sign Language translation today. We're also translating in Spanish for those of you that are watching online. And if you need assistance accessing the translation, you can use the Zoom chat function. And we're monitoring that, and you can keep an eye on that, as well as questions and answers. Question and answers, you can use the chat function on Zoom or in the webinar there. We'll be able to get to most of those. If we don't, there'll be a FAQ portion posted on the regional cities website in the future. For those of you in the room, if you have questions, we ask that you save those till the end. We'll have a time for a Q&A at the end. More than likely, the speakers will have an opportunity to answer those in advance. Let's see, following the formal programming, Regina and her whole team has been working hard, Bethany, on creating a really fun experience out here in the Commons where you can engage with some of the projects, offer feedback and ideas for the READI initiative that we're going to discuss today. We also have food trucks outside. We're going to have some live music. For those of you that want to get wet, the splash pad will be on as well. So with that said, I would like to introduce the Vice President of Innovation and Strategic Initiatives for the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. He's also our liaison for the READI initiative. Mark Waskey's here. Mark.
Thank you, Aaron. And it's a really, truly a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I want to thank Regina for inviting the IEDC to share a little bit of detail on this exciting new initiative that really builds on the foundation that was established with regional cities, was continued through the 21st Century Talent Region effort. And now with the new READI program, I now try and focus on program, but because READI is initiative, kind of like ATM, machine is machine. So we've been trying to make sure that we're not being too repetitive while still getting the word out across the state about what we see as a truly transformative opportunity for Indiana to build out of some of the challenges of the last 14 months, but really to position our state as a national leader in the talent attraction and retention effort. And I'll start out, I guess, to give a little bit of background about why this remains so important for the IEDC to focus on. I'm not going to try and give a normal IEDC spiel to you all today, but really to just focus on why talent and the need to make investments in projects and programs around the state to make sure Indiana is able to remain competitive is so important. And that is, even with the challenges that we've all faced, this year, we're on track to have another record year in terms of job commitments and investment commitments from businesses across the state. With over 15,000 new job commitments coming from businesses over the next couple of years. And something that we're really paying attention to is the wage of those jobs and the quality of those jobs as well. And we're really excited that that continues to move up every single year with it being close to $29 an hour. And we hope to see it go further than that. But this year is really, a continuation of what we've seen over the last 4 years of the Holcomb administration, with nearly 100,000 new jobs coming to communities across the state over the next couple of years, with tremendous amounts of investment and again that really quality wage that we continue to focus on. But as I mentioned, this continues to be a focus for us. Back in 2013, when then Governor Pence came into office, he tasked the IEDC with identifying the main barrier to our continued growth as a state over the long term. And, at the time, we identified, population stagnation as a major issue. We know that, finding a skilled labor force is of utmost importance for our partners in the business community. And unless we're able to provide that, the state's economy is going to potentially stagnate, if not decline. So we set out then to say, what do we have to do to be able to remain competitive? And what came out of that was regional cities. And not to make light of it, but I could almost just ask Regina to turn the video back on and say, this is what we want to continue to do. So let's all move forward. But, what we have now been implementing since May 3rd with the help of the General Assembly, Representative Miller, see you here, appreciate your support this year, is kind of to take what we know was tremendously successful with regional cities, a focus on quality of place and quality of life, but to try and also include investments in the other factors that play a role in somebody's decision to live in or work in a community. And by doing that, by not just focusing on brick and mortar projects, but some other programmatic initiatives that help Indiana's communities not just be excellent places, but also to help them stand out from a crowded field of high quality places around the country. So to do that, and again, the objective is population growth for us and making sure that Indiana's communities are seen as national benchmarks for quality to accelerate our growth. And to do that, we're going to continue to build upon what we saw as most successful with regional cities. And one thing that I always try and highlight is with regional cities, with this initiative, if we didn't have $500 million, getting communities to come together, plan, collaborate, and move forward together would be seen as a success. But with $500 million from the General Assembly, we're now able to really, jumpstart and fuel that activity, even more so than we have been able to do in the past. One other item that we are trying to highlight with this initiative is a focus on sustainability, and that, I guess, is it comes in a couple of different forms. One is in terms of funding. We're really encouraging regions around the state to creatively find ways to invest the money that the state will commit to the region, to hopefully find ways to return that to the region to be able to invest in other ways. The other is, in terms of just a focus on continuing to work with one another, even once the state's investment has been completed, to identify other ways that that your communities and your stakeholder partners can continue to work together and further implement the plan that you put together. So for our priorities, again, the top line is to accelerate the state's population growth through net domestic and international migration to bring more people to Indiana at the end of the day. And to do that, we are supporting communities invest in themselves by creating high quality communities that are seen as national benchmarks, that have a thriving and vibrant entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem, and that are able to supply and provide the high quality jobs that are able to weather some of the, obviously economic trends, but also are prepared for the industry trends that we see coming down the pike, which, pre-pandemic, we saw kind of a 5 to 10 year horizon, and in some cases seems to only be accelerating from there. So we want to invest in programs and initiatives that support the businesses in your community, prepare for the future, and hopefully provide additional high quality opportunities to bring more people in. One thing we're also trying to stress, and this region was a perfect example of having your anchor institutions at the table and being a part of the conversation, helping to shape the future of the region. Having a world-class research institution in Notre Dame, and front and center at the table is a huge asset. And we really encourage continued engagement with all of your anchor institutions, whether they be your higher education institutions, your K-12 school districts, community foundations and other philanthropic organizations, as well as your other major employers in the community, because they have a vested interest in the success of your communities. And we want to make sure that there is a diverse group of stakeholders at the table helping to shape the plan. So for eligible organizations and communities, this slide may not be as applicable for this region as it may be for other areas of the state that are just starting, this regional collaborative effort. But with a functioning RDA, we would encourage the region to continue to use that entity as a vehicle and a tool to bring people together and ultimately implement the plan. But for those areas of the state that may not be ready to take the step to form an RDA, we have tried to provide some flexibility to allow them to shape their region and the organization that they utilize to participate in the effort in a way that works best for them at that time, with hopefully that allows them to progress further down the line. So for project ideas, as I mentioned, a focus on quality of place and quality of life continues to be of particular importance for the IEDC, and we encourage regions to continue to invest in projects like this to enhance the vibrancy and the quality of your regional communities. But we're also interested in supporting other investments that again help North Central Indiana stand out from other places around the country by doing really creative and innovative things. So we plan to provide money and are prepared to invest in other initiatives focused on innovation and entrepreneurship, developing high partnerships with major private sector industry leaders to bring new technologies into the region to allow your employers to figure out what comes next and what do they need to do to position themselves to remain competitive over the long term, but also supporting entrepreneurs across the region and small business owners across the region continue to form their new businesses, take their ideas from just that an idea and turn it into a business, and having the support system in place to be able to make that a reality is another thing that the IEDC would support. And finally, we're also looking at other talent attraction and development initiatives to invest in. That's kind of vague, and then we're kind of looking to the region to tell us what you think is going to help attract somebody and keep people here within North Central Indiana. And I'll add two things before I move on to kind of the timeline and next steps. First is, if a project or an idea may not fit neatly within one of these 3 to 4 major categories, but is aligned with your strategic vision, we would encourage you to still include that in your plan. So that way we understand the complete vision for your community's future. And we are doing that because we're asking you all to work with one another. It would be kind of hypocritical if the state didn't try and do the same thing. And one thing that we are working on and exploring is ways that the IEDC can work with our partner agencies across state government that have potential funding alternatives. We use the example of a trail project. If a trail project is of regional importance to your communities and you'd like to build it, we would want to speak with you and then go and work with DNR to see if there might be an opportunity to leverage some of their resources to allow us to tap into those funds, to allow the $50 million potentially that we would commit to this region to be stretched as far as possible into other projects that might not have funding alternatives at the state level. So we would like to see this grow from a $500 million initiative to something even bigger than that, if at all possible. The other reason why I mentioned include these is related to that, but we also know that there are a significant amount of funds flowing through communities across the state and really around the country right now. And our goal with this initiative at this time is to provide an opportunity for this region to hopefully coordinate how those investments may be made using those dollars in alignment with a broader strategic vision to hopefully have the largest and most impactful impact for those investments over the long term. I'll wrap things up now, just kind of lay out the timeline for this. For some communities, this is a very accelerated and rapid movement that we're about to make. But there are a couple reasons for that, one of which is we don't want to slow or unnecessarily delay the implementation and the progress of regions that are ready to move forward today. So that's why we have asked regions to form their regions and submit their plans by the end of this summer, with our review being conducted over the fall with the help of a strategic review committee, much like regional cities. The IEDC and our partners are planning to come back to North Central Indiana over the course of the fall to see firsthand what the community is today and get a sense of what it could become in the future, with our recommendations being ready for our board of directors at their Q4 board meeting this year. So again, it is accelerated, but we feel that there are a number of communities around the state that are ready for action today, and we want to be a part of that. And I guess the other item and the reason why this is also accelerated is there is a timeline on the funds that we have been provided by the General Assembly using our federal stimulus funds for this. So we do need to move with a sense of urgency to make sure that we have these investments committed at a minimum by the end of 2024. Or excuse me, 2023. But I say that to say there is urgency, but we are also encouraging regions to take a really thoughtful approach when moving forward to make sure that we are making investments in a way that fits the region at the right time to have the greatest amount of impact for you all. So with that, I will wrap up my presentation and look forward to the question and answer session in a little bit.
Thank you, Mark. Truly excited for the READI program. I got to get used to that as well. And I hope you can see the enthusiasm that exists for the program in this room. And I know you'll take that back downstate when you go and let everyone know how excited we are for this next step. I wanted to introduce next the Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer for Lake City Bank and the Treasurer Secretary of the Northern Indiana Regional Development Authority, Kristen Pruitt. Kristen.
Good morning. Wow. Fabulous to see a lot of people here, and not just because it's been a minute since we've all been able to get together. It is really wonderful to see the enthusiasm of everybody here and of people in the community for what we've done and also for what is yet to come. As Aaron mentioned, I am the Secretary Treasurer of the Regional Development Authority Board, and I am, it is really an honor to be here today. And as we've gotten ready for READI, I really appreciate the opportunity for those puns. They might get a little tiresome, but it occurs to me that it occurred to us as an RDA that we should take a moment to reflect back on the regional cities process, sort of what worked, what didn't, what we learned as an organization, what we learned as a community and as a region. And as I've given that some thought, there are just three observations I'd like to make today. The first, just as far as impact, and the first is obvious. The obvious impact which is a financial one. I remember I was not on the RDA board when the Regional Cities Award was announced several years ago. But I remember my first thought was, wow, $42 million is an awful lot of money. And about 24 hours later, as I started hearing people talk about the plans for this money, I thought, wow, $42 million isn't nearly as much money as people think it is. But the brilliance of the way that program was designed, of course, was that it wasn't $42 million. It was $42 million that was the catalyst for hundreds of millions of dollars of investment that came from local and local government and also private partners. And it was really a great example of public and private partnerships that was obviously, I mean, we're sitting in one of the great projects that we did, and all across our region, you can see the benefit and how this region benefited from the investment in these projects. So obviously we knew it would have the financial impact would be tremendous, and it certainly was. But the second thing was really that it solidified and gave structure to a regional mindset in how we approach these issues. We live regionally, right? We all live here, we work here, we play here. But that doesn't mean if we live in South Bend, we never leave South Bend. I live in Granger, I work in Warsaw, I spend an ungodly amount of hours at the pool in Elkhart. We go to Lake Michigan, we go down to Lake Maxinkuckee. We do things all over our region, and we all are richer for it. And we know that's how we live. And now the economic development mindset of our leaders and of our organizations here is oriented in that regional direction. And obviously that is important. And that didn't stop when the $42 million got spent. And that's really the important part. Without even knowing what was to come, the potential for some READI grant program funding opportunities, we continued to work regionally. We developed a framework so that the really great momentum wouldn't just evaporate when the funds were gone. And special thanks to Pete McCown, who of Elkhart Community Foundation, who's also on the RDA board, for really spearheading a thoughtful and comprehensive initiative on that front. But the third way that the regional cities had a tremendous impact was a little more subtle to me, and not as obvious to me at first. And I think back to my 18-year-old self when I came to college up the road. At the time, I was a proud daughter of Cleveland, Ohio. Go Browns. And I was horrified when I told people that I was from Cleveland. And the first thing they said was, oh, that's where the river caught on fire, right? And I was really actually kind of devastated because I love Cleveland, and Cleveland was a fabulous place to grow up. And I went home at fall break and I talked to a friend of mine, a father of a friend of mine who was involved in urban renewal projects. And I said, how do we change that? How do we change this idea that this is where the river caught on fire? And he said, well, there's lots of ways to change it, but the first thing that has to happen is we have to stop thinking of ourselves as the place where the river caught on fire. So the self-esteem, this is what I consider sort of the self-esteem impact of this region. People come from outside of this region every day, and they are wowed by what's happening here, what's happening at the pool in Elkhart. My brother was just in last weekend from Chicago. We came down to Howard Park. He couldn't believe it, right? It's fabulous and it's exciting. But the first thing that had to happen before any of this mattered was that we had to feel excited and good about living here ourselves. We had to want to live, work, and play here too. And it wasn't just that we came here begrudgingly because we got a good job and this is where we ended up having to live. We have to love being here. And I remember standing not far from this very site when we did the groundbreaking for Howard Park, and I thought, this is the beginning. This is the beginning of our sort of progress to self-esteem about this community, so that when we tell people who visit us from out of town or who are considering moving here or are considering relocating their businesses here, that we love living here and they should too. Because if we don't love living here, the talent that we want to attract, the development, the economic development we want to opportunities we want to see, they're never going to come here unless we believe this is a great place to be. So Regional Cities 1 laid the groundwork in a tremendously positive way for that. And we are ready for READI. Because we think we've learned a lot during the process, particularly the projects that have the biggest impact, and particularly with the need for conceptualizing ways to make the funding sustainable, so that we have great planning. We already have great planning, and now with the sustainability piece, we will have a way to keep this going into the future for a long time. So it's really exciting to be here. It's really exciting to be here talking about the READI program, and we're very grateful, Mark, for you and the IDC for your support of our region and the support of all of you for being here today. Thank you very much. And I almost forgot the most important part of my job, which was to introduce Regina, who really needs no introduction, but I didn't do it on purpose. So, Regina.
Thank you, Kristen. Wow, so it's hard to believe this, but it was December of 2015 when we all gathered at the Lerner Theater to announce the Regional Cities Initiatives Grant Award. It's been an absolute pleasure to work alongside the RDA and the 28 project teams over the past few years, and to be standing here today, seeing the vision that was created by so many of you and others across the region, whether they're online or weren't able to be here today. It's just amazing to see this vision coming to fruition. And we looked at the Regional Cities Initiative like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I mean, $42 million, that is a once in a lifetime opportunity to support regional economic development in our region. Yet a few years later, the region rallied again and worked together to bring in another $42 million grant, that time from the Lilly Endowment, to support the creation of the LIFT network and the innovation-led economic development efforts that are happening with that partnership. And here we are again, presented with an opportunity to collaborate, to think big, and to partner with the state again as we shape the vision for our region's future. So I want to just take a few minutes to thank some of you who have been very integral in these initiatives and are here again, ready to roll up your sleeves and get to work. I had to have a pun too. So our RDA members, the Regional Partnership Board of Directors, and all of our advisory committee members, in particular, our board chair, Pete McCowan, who continues to provide leadership across the region for collaboration and economic development efforts. The IEDC for their continued partnership and investment in our region. I know I saw Mark Neal here as well as Mark Waske. Mark represents our region on the IEDC board. Our local elected officials, so you saw several mayors, commissioners, city council members that are here with us today, as well as our state legislators who appropriated that $500 million toward the READI initiative and who are making this type of innovative, talent-led economic development possible in the state of Indiana. So where are we as a region? We heard a lot about the program. We're going to talk a little bit about this. So the program launched May 3rd, and about a month later, we are moving forward. The RDA met just a few days after the May 3rd launch and agreed to serve as the coordinating entity and the applicant that was working together with the regional partnership and with MACOG to provide the infrastructure to manage this process. They also approved the funding that was needed to serve as a match to the state's planning grant and to enable our region to hire a third-party consultant, Fourth Economy, to guide us through the stakeholder engagement process and the proposal development. The IEDC encouraged communities to define their own region and then to provide them notice of our intent to seek funding no later than July 1st. The RDA, the Regional Partnership, and MACOG all agreed on the intent to seek funding and to define our region inclusive of Elkhart, Marshall, and St. Joseph counties. And we've already provided notice to the state of Indiana of our intent to seek a financial partnership. A steering committee has been formed, and this includes representatives from the RDA, from our Regional Partnership Executive Committee, the 5 chairs of our program committees, as well as representatives from the Chambers of Commerce, the LIFT Network, and MACOG. The steering committee met quickly and has provided some guidance that about half of the funding that our region would develop in this proposal should be used to initiate a Regional Cities 2.0 initiative. So think, about half of the potential investment, I'll say the investment that our region is looking to seek would be really dedicated to continue those brick and mortar quality of life projects that we've seen be so impactful. The other half, or about $25 million, would be allocated to more strategic and programmatic initiatives that are identified and prioritized in our 5 key program areas. These are entrepreneurship, industry growth, education and workforce, talent attraction and retention, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can see how almost exactly our 5 pillars and what our region is working on economic development aligns with the state's vision, and how that we'll be able to use the infrastructure that was created out of the regional cities and putting together the 5 committees on those program areas will serve us in this endeavor. And I mentioned we've engaged our third-party consultant. We are very pleased to be working with Fourth Economy on this initiative. We have in the back of the room, Rich Overmeyer and Nicole Muse-Kalkucky are here with us, so they can answer lots of questions too if you have them as we network after the event. Rich especially may be a familiar face to many of you. This is the same consulting firm that worked with the state of Indiana as they developed Regional Cities Initiative, and they worked specifically with our region on our proposal that was successful in securing the Regional Cities grant. More recently, they've been engaged and are working with MACOG on an economic resiliency plan. So we were able to take that foundational work that they're already in progress on, expand the scope of work so that they can help us facilitate a really broad stakeholder engagement process and help guide our 5 committees as they work to prioritize the ideas that will eventually become our updated regional development plan and serve as our proposal that we'll submit to the IEDC by August 31st on the deadline. So with this infrastructure and guidance in place, today actually marks the public launch of our regional planning phase. We'll be soliciting ideas and inputs from the broadest group of stakeholders possible so that we can identify the strategies and the strategies to attract people and accelerate the region's economic growth. Fourth Economy will guide our advisory committees through that process to source and evaluate these strategies and to prioritize the projects that would have the greatest impact. And this is just the beginning. So I want to really personally invite each one of you to stay engaged throughout this process. The end result is going to be a collaborative effort that reflects the people in our region and what makes it a great place and will continue to make it an even better place. The easiest way to get engaged and stay engaged is to go to our landing page at southbendelkhart.org. It'll have a big pop-up right when you go on that says, get more information about READI. And you can click there. We're going to keep the page updated with information, updates, and you can also complete a form so that you can stay engaged so that we send you information on events or other things that are happening with the program. And you can submit your ideas today. So if you didn't have a chance to beforehand, we would invite you to take part in the Map Your Idea project. And Jen Swayze, who is a local entrepreneur with Art Dabbler Designs, she's created this awesome visual representation, which is a map of our region, and it's got icons for the 28 Regional Cities Initiative projects that have happened across the region. It's just phenomenal to look at that and see it all in one place and think about the investment that's happened and what each of those 28 projects means to our local communities and to our region overall. There are little pins and they each have a number on it. You can pin it in there and flag your idea. For those of you who are participating virtually, there is a QR code that you can link to and you can submit your idea virtually as well. If you don't have time to stay and fill that out, there are little cards with QR codes on each of your seats. And we really want you to go there. These are just preliminary ideas. They don't have to be full thought out projects. We want to try to start thinking and identifying some of those common themes for the proposal and then share those with the appropriate committees so that they can be included in the process of the vision and potentially be part of our plan. So I feel like we've shared a ton of information today, both from the state perspective, sort of a historical reflection and kind of where we're at with the READI grant right now. I know that there's a lot of information and we want to invite you to ask questions. So I'm going to invite Mark back up to the stage and feel free informally here, just kind of raise your hand. We'll try to get some questions here. If you're participating virtually, please put your question in the chat and we're monitoring that. And Bethany will be asking some of those questions so that we can answer them as well. So come on up, Mark, and every single person in this room is what's making this an awesome region. Jeff.
Hey, Mark, thanks for coming. You're doing this around the state, visiting the 15 different regions. Can you give us a snapshot of the energy, what's happening in other parts of Indiana as they're going through this process?
Yeah, so thank you, Jeff. And for those online, the question was, we've been traveling around the state, the IEDC, and a question about what's the other activity and other things that are going on across the state. I guess I'll admit I was in Evansville yesterday, so I'm really making the trip across the state. But Jeff, I think to poorly answer your question is it kind of depends on where you are. There are some areas of the state that are obviously have been doing this for some time. North Central being an example of that have the infrastructure in place from regional cities and from other regional efforts. There's one thing I can say is no matter where you go, there's a tremendous amount of excitement about the potential of this initiative and what it could mean for each individual community and each individual organization that's engaged, with the IEDC and their partners in the region. As far as questions and things that there's, well, how do I even begin the conversation? In some places. And in others, it's what is the state's focus and priority as we begin to pull all of this together. And one thing that we have been trying to hammer home is the IEDCs in Central Indiana can't come into North Central Indiana and say, these are your problems, these are your barriers to growth, these are the opportunities that you have, and this is how you're going to do it. We really are looking to you to tell us what you need and provide us with the opportunity to invest in those opportunities or in those projects that help remove some of the challenges that the region's been facing to allow you to grow and prosper.
Any observations that how other regions are incentivizing or ensuring kind of employer participation in this process?
That's a great question, and the question is how is the IEDC helping to ensure that there is the voice of the employers as the region undertakes this planning effort. And one thing that we have been trying to do is reach out directly to them and encourage them to connect with the regional leaders that are helping to pull the plan together to make sure that they're engaged. Regina mentioned that we have received North Central's submission and notice that you are planning to pull a plan and participate in this initiative. And what we are going to do once July 1st hits is to make sure that the organization and a point of contact is put on our public website for individuals, whether they be people just interested residents, but also employers know this is the person that I need to go and talk to make sure that I can share my thoughts and concerns if there are any about the region's future. The other thing is we're trying to ask the regional leaders to take some time and be deliberate about reaching out to the employers within the community to make sure that there is that proactive effort on the regional side to make sure that, again, the employer's voice is heard. The reason why we have stressed the importance of engaging anchor institutions, employers in the community is because their future is dependent on the success of the community. So having them engaged and helping to shape that is vitally important. The other is for a focus on trying to provide stability, if at all possible. Even within those organizations, people may change. Your local elected partners may change over time, but having the organization bought in helps ensure that there's that stability and effort as things move forward. So, if there's a question that you have, obviously feel free to reach out to the IEDC. I saw Dave Baer here today. He'll let you know who you need to talk to, but also may fire some things off to me, and we'll make sure that we are supportive of anyone that wants to participate in this regional effort.
Last question. What advice may you have for regions that have already received the regional cities investment versus others that have not? Just from your perspective, should we build on what's been done or think about that new? Any advice you have for our cities today?
Thank you, Andrea. And the question was, for those that may have received an investment from the state through regional cities, any advice for those communities, whether to build upon what was in place or to look at moving in a different direction. And my advice would be, don't reinvent the wheel. Build on the foundation that has been established and the fantastic networks that have been developed between your communities. But again, think, obviously continue to focus on place, but think about those other programs and initiatives that can help, create that sense of vibrancy and again, get your community really proud about yourselves. As Kristen had mentioned, that really is, to use the term of one of our board members, John Thompson, the secret sauce to a lot of this is having, ownership and pride in what you have, it starts to build within the community, but then people that are seeing, there's a lot of activity going on in South Bend, Elkhart, and Marshall County. Why? What's going on? It helps to draw that attention, that helps the state ultimately become successful.
First of all, I'd like to applaud you all for organizing this and the work that's been done. I'd also like to applaud everybody in this room because, quite frankly, every one of you over the last decade have made fantastic changes in our community. I'd also like to challenge all of us. That is, I'd like to challenge us to change the composition of this room so it looks less like me and more like the communities in which we. So the question I want to ask us is, are we ready to reach out for READI and reach out to those communities and get them engaged? Because we're not only here about the talent attraction, the talent is here. The talent's not coming. It exists in every one of our neighborhoods. There are people who are doing amazing work that we just have not seen or necessarily recognized. And I begin to see us start to do that. So I'd encourage each one of us to reach out, and the next time we get together, bring somebody with you that doesn't look like you, and let's try to work together to make sure our entire community is ready.
I just want to thank Mike for standing up and saying that, because I serve on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee that Bethany leads, and I couldn't agree more. And it's not a separate pillar; it's a piece of every other pillar.
Questions for the project folks. Like, what's the project? How do you decide the location of the project? What's the money? What's been done in South Bend is phenomenal. Our part, some of the things it's really great, but it's just like all the money is going to like a specific location. If we forget about like the west side, other parts of town that going back to this point, we need to be looking at the project with people where you're not doing projects in that area, right? It's just like you're outside.
Yeah, so the question was, how does a project get prioritized or decided? It seems that some of the regional cities investments, looking back, was concentrated in particular geographic areas. And I think that's accurate. The Regional Cities Initiative had a very specific focus on urban, downtown, sort of like cores of communities. But that is not to negate the importance of the corridors and the neighborhoods and every area across our region. And so that's why with this program, we're really pleased that we're able to sort of branch out. There's a little bit more latitude, I would say, in the criteria that we're going to be able to develop and present to the state in our proposal. So not only brick and mortar projects, but if these could be entrepreneurial initiatives or things like that, that could be supported across the region. And we'll be working with Fourth Economy to put out the criteria so that it's really clear and easy for people to say, okay, I have this idea. It does have regional impact. It does have a clear project champion. You know, it has like these things that would make it appropriate. And then this is also a long-term strategic plan. So there may be some signature projects and things that we know are identified up front or sourced, so we find these great ideas, but there's going to be many, many years down the road where we hope to continue to leverage this funding so that it is available. And like Mark was saying with the sustainability, making sure that we have the money that can be invested all across the region and hopefully in different neighborhoods and things like that. I think one of the other things that's really important, and I think our secret sauce here in the region is the regional partnership is one entity. It's a convener, and we try to spread information, but the organizations that are having a great impact are all of those that are coordinated and working on, whether it's immigration efforts or small business development, our chambers of commerce and our LIDOs, our neighborhood organizations, you know, things like that. La Casa, I just think of like all of these different organizations. So what can we do to make sure that we're all working together and stronger by implementing things all across the region? Hodge.
So let me ask this question. So there's the city.
Receiving federal dollars to American Rescue. How important is the allocation of those dollars towards this project, connected to this project as well, so there's an overlap and connection, instead of a disconnection of the cities and the counties going in one direction, using those federal dollars, and then, you know, Regina's group is trying to do something different. So we talk about how important that synergy is in order to have success.
I'll give you a little bit of context just from the regional perspective. So that infrastructure that was put together really as part of the Regional Cities Initiative included forming a regional mayors and commissioners council. So, and also working directly with MACOG with their local policy board, which is representative of the local elected officials. And we have quarterly meetings where everyone comes together. And so this is not something that's new to us. This sort of collaborative effort is something that's been established and created that we're working on. We've met with the mayors and commissioners twice now since we launched the READI, and we have meetings scheduled every 2 weeks so that we can keep them updated. It's critical because there's a 1-to-1 local public match that's required for our projects. And the federal money that's coming into the cities and counties, our organizations, could be aligned and used as that match. So it doesn't have to necessarily be that, but we're thinking that way, and we're having those conversations very, very regularly. Mm-hmm.
There's not much more than I can add to what Regina just said, but I guess the two things that I would like to highlight is we are hoping that by going through this effort, there is an opportunity to achieve that alignment of how those resources are allocated. And then to hammer on the point, you know, we are, you know, trying to encourage that even further by saying, you know, that can be used as your local match. It doesn't have to be local by using local property tax or other tax revenues. If you have resources that you control, the communities can use that as their match to the state's resources.
All right. Well, I'm sure that there will be a lot more information as we learn more from the state, as we sort of develop the process to work through this together. But I just want to, again, thank each one of you. And Mike, you said it great. Like every single person in this room is what's making this an awesome region. So let's continue to spread the word, get more people engaged, and submit this proposal. And then I'm just so excited about the future.